Hey there, it's Craig. At some point during your career growth, you're going to have to travel. It may be by plane, train, bus, automobile, but you're going to have to travel. If it's going through airports, I think you want to listen to today's episode. Join me for Travel Safety. Welcome back to the Career Growth Made Easy podcast. I'm your host, Craig Ansell. We're rolling into episode 87, Travel Safety. The background and topics for some of my shows come from some of the experiences I've had over the years, and today's show is no different. In the last month or so, I've traveled through a few of America's airports. You're probably familiar with, please don't leave your bags unattended. Please don't talk to strangers. Please keep an eye on your bags. Those messages seem to repeat on the loudspeaker every few seconds, and they're drilled into your head. And that's a good thing. In fact, I think it's a great thing. So it's become automated in our heads. We expect to hear it. But what about us? What should we be doing? Oh, I know. Those repeat messages, especially with COVID around, still. Wash your hands frequently. Okay. Use hand sanitizer. Okay. I think the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, even recommends a certain percentage of alcohol in your hand sanitizer. I think it's either 70 or 75%. The point is that the formulation should not be too weak, such that it does kill the germs on the surface of your skin. Now, they go on to say that washing with warm or very warm water and soap is highly recommended because that truly removes the dirt and germs, but not just the alcohol, which kills what's on the surface, right? So washing is preferred, alcohol second. But it's a good quick fix if you need it and you're traveling. Okay, so we started off talking about our luggage, our possessions, our belongings. Great, we need to take care of those. But as I said earlier, what do we need to take care of for ourselves? Our personal health. Now, I can almost see you through this podcast microphone. I can almost see you nodding with me. Of course, Craig, you're right. I've traveled recently, Craig. Maybe it wasn't by a plane, but I was cautious and I was aware of my surroundings. That's great, and I commend you. But I think, tailoring off last week's show, How is Your Attention to Detail, number 86, I want to kind of give you just a self-health quiz today. Your attention to detail, how is it when it comes to your health and your safety, especially when you travel? You might wonder, what are we going to talk about this episode? Well, I think our habits can impact us negatively. There's a lot of things we do, and there's some things we take for granted that we don't realize can harm us. As I've traveled through some of the nation's airports in the last month, I've noticed some particular behaviors that I found alarming, and I'd like to share with you just so you could maybe do a self-check and see if you're affected by these habits. When we travel, we might use the stairs or an escalator, for example. It's commonplace to put your hand on the railing for assistance. And why not? Safety first, right? You should keep multiple points of contact with the ground, especially while you're climbing, such as with stairs. So if you lose your footing, you can grab onto that railing as a safety measure and not fall down or trip. And that's good advice. But what happens when you're done using the stairs? Do you realize your hand was on that rail? How many other people's hands have been on that rail recently? When was the last time it was clean or sanitized? Okay, so you don't use the stairs. No problem. Check mark there. You're safe. But what about escalators? Now they have them in airports, not only for descending and climbing heights, but also horizontally, like fast-moving sidewalks. And if you think about that, it's quite ingenious. Not only do we have trams or trains that will take us between terminals and gates in airports, but we now have fast-moving sidewalks. So you have the opportunity to walk at your standard pace, or you can get on one of these escalators, horizontal fast-moving sidewalks, And if there's no one in front of you, walk as well. So you're actually increasing your rate because not only are you walking at your speed, but you're also traveling at the speed of the escalator. Pretty cool. The problem there, though, it has a handrail also. You might be familiar with that. Do you choose to use it? Okay, safety first, right? But how often are those cleaned? How many times did you touch it? Who touched it before you? The point of these messages right now, as we move into the middle part of the podcast, is just to get you aware of the things that you're touching. We take things for granted. Handles, hand railings, stair railings. That's no problem. In fact, it's probably code when you have building codes that it's required to have some type of device to hold on to for safety. But with that said, there's a lot of things that we do and take for granted that we have to be cautious with. Another area, elevators. When you call for the elevator, do you push the button like most people with the tip of your finger? Who touched it before you? How often was that button or set of buttons cleaned? When you use a vending machine. First of all, if you're paying with cash or coins, you have to touch that money, which has been touched by others. Then make your selection and touch the screen or push the button to operate the machine. Certainly nothing wrong with that, but germs can multiply. So think about that. What's the last thing you touched when you were traveling or in an airport? When's the last time you washed your hands or sanitized? As I traveled through America's airports in the last month, I've seen a recurrence of some not so safe habits, at least in my opinion. I'm not here to judge, and I'm not here to offend. I just saw some things that I'd like to share. Perhaps if you do these things occasionally, maybe you'd like to reconsider and come up with an alternate game plan. There were people, both in the airports and on the planes that I traveled, eating finger food, those items that don't require silverware or plasticware to eat. An example could be a hot dog. Another example could be French fries, maybe snack foods that come in foil bags such as potato chips, Cheetos, something of that nature. They were eating them with their hands. Now, I didn't watch them and watch from beginning to end to see if they sanitized beforehand or afterward, but there's a good chance that a few people didn't. So, the things that you had touched prior that other people had touched, regardless of how many or how recently, could carry germs. Those germs likely are now on your hands and on your fingertips. So when you're eating food, that food now is coming in contact with your unfortunately dirty hands and dirty fingers. Then you're digesting that food. So just think next time you're traveling, whether it's by airport, bus terminal, train, what have you. Think about everything that you come in contact with. Of course, we should wear face masks. It's highly recommended. Your face mask helps protect you and helps protect others. But there's a lot more we can do than just be concerned about our luggage and our belongings. For travel safety, it's a great idea to take your personal health as a priority. Be cautious and be aware. Even be selective of the things that you choose to touch and how you touch them. If a door is push, you can use your forearm, your elbow, or part of your body, your shoulder perhaps. Turn your body around and back into the door to open it with the back of your jacket or the back, the side of your shoulder. If the door is pull, rather than instinctively grabbing it with your fingertips, which unfortunately can be touch points for your face, go ahead and use the palm of your hand. Or if the handle's large enough, maybe you want to use part of your jacket to stuff in there along with your hand so that your jacket's the first point of contact. Just food for thought. Again, don't do anything that's unsafe or where your clothing could get caught or torn by a door or some type of hinge assembly, but just think about that. When you use a rental vehicle, they say they're sanitized for your protection, which is a great thing. I always like to do a double check and bring my own wipes with me, such as for the steering wheel, the shifter, the headlights, maybe the radio controls, and then the heating and air conditioning controls. Those are all the common points of touch. And if you're going to operate the windows, or at least the mirrors to adjust them, wipe those controls down too. It's good practice. Now, I'm not trying to be paranoid, and I'm not trying to go into overkill about travel safety and this COVID reminder, because even if COVID wasn't around, you can still get germs, illnesses, flus, sicknesses. The big thing, though, with the example about eating finger foods, there were other people that were doing things where they would, after eating, such as ribs or meals with a lot of sauces on them, lick their fingers clean. The old habit, or the old statement from, what was it, Colonel Sanders from Kentucky Fried Chicken? It was finger licking good food, right? Well, that's a nice motto or a nice saying, but when you come to safety, gotta think about what's on your hands before you lick your fingers clean. And then, maybe it's from anxiety from flying or nerves. We all have different ways of dealing with our emotions and stressful situations, but there is a habit out there that also isn't too safe, and it's definitely unhealthy, and it's biting your fingernails. Your fingernails are a common area that don't get washed too frequently unless you make the extra effort. Clean them with a brush, for example. And they are a collector place for germs. Biting your fingernails is not a healthy habit to have. Now again, I'm not being judgmental, just bringing up the facts. So, avoid touching your face. Avoid placing your hands or your fingers in your mouth. When it comes to your face, your eyes are a critical area we like to brush or rub when they're irritated, or we might feel there's some dirt or something in the way blocking our view. Be extra cautious what you use to touch your face with, and wash your hands as frequently as possible. Remember what you touched last. Just try to keep track of what you're touching. Even the simple practice of sitting down into a seat, whether it's a plane, train, what have you, automobile, you're likely to put on some type of seat buckle. When you do, you're touching that buckle like others likely have. So keep your hands washed, cleaned, sanitized. As we start to go back and travel starts to increase in the world, these brief and simple travel tips can help as reminders for travel safety. Yes, keep aware of your belongings, your luggage, purse, wallet, those sorts of things. But be, I would say, very critical about everything that you touch. Make a decision. What am I going to be interacting with next, or who am I going to be interacting with next? What items do I absolutely have to touch or operate? And what are some alternative methods that I can use to touch or operate, such as if you're going to be calling an elevator, rather than using your fingertip, which is a common touch point for your face, unfortunately, maybe fold your finger over and use a knuckle on your finger, maybe the knuckle on your hand. I've seen people use their elbows. Also, you might want to have a pair of gloves on while you go through your airport or bus terminals and use those gloves. Take them off before you do anything such as eating or touching your face. They should be an effective safety shield between your hand and the surfaces you touch. Earlier in this podcast, I mentioned this episode was sort of a self-health quiz checkup, and I hope you passed with flying colors. But I have something else for you, and it's in the form of another freebie. We have a leadership quiz. You can go to it and take it to see what kind of leader you are. It's at craigansell.com/leadership quiz, all one word. It's a free gift from me and our team at the Career Growth Made Easy podcast. Take it and see what kind of leader you are, and it will help you evaluate where you stand. Maybe learn something new about some of your characteristics, some areas for improvement, and maybe some areas for strengths. Again, that's craigansell.com/leadership quiz. So as we wrap up this episode, number 87 for the Career Growth Made Easy podcast, Travel Safety COVID Reminder, I ask you to employ safety when you travel. Think about all the touch points that are possible from the moment you leave home to your final destination and when you return. Make some of those touch points optional and consider some of the alternative methods that we've talked about today. And above all things, avoid contact with your face, especially your mouth and your eyes. Have a happy, healthy, and safe start to the new year. I will talk to you next week. This has been Craig Ansell. Peace. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to our channel. New episodes every Monday. In the meantime, why don't you follow us on social media at Craig Ansell on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. To book a coaching appointment, download our free guides, or join our email list, check out the links in the description below.